Are we on? Good morning, RockPointe. How are you guys doing this morning?
Great.
Sunglasses inside. Wait, can I try them on real quick?
Yeah.
Come on, that's what I'm saying. Dude, that's what I'm saying. I like it. Come on, aviators inside. That's a great Sunday morning. I love it. All right, so I have a little story for you guys. So it was last year, me and my wife's wedding day. We stood before God, our family, and our friends to make a vow and love each other as long as God would have us here on earth. And in this wedding ceremony, we're going to do a little competition real quick. Gentlemen, you guys get to start. Who are the people that stand beside the groom?
Best man.
I'll give you like half a point. One of them is a best man. Who's everybody else? What?
I know that the groom.
Not quite. So there's the groom, and then we have the best man, and then who's everybody else? The groomsman. All right. Hey, guys. Hey, I love that we are learning very practical things. You can go home and tell your parents what you learned this morning already. Now, ladies, I'm going to be honest. I have a higher bar for you guys, okay? So there is the bride. Who stands next to the bride?
Maid of honor.
The maid of honor. And if she's married, the matron of honor. This was students only, Christy. We've talked about this before, okay? I know you have a competitive spirit, but we got to work on that. And then who's everybody else? The bridesmaids. Okay, I'm going to give it to the girls. They won hands down, okay? And so as Maddie and I were planning for our wedding day, we decided that we wanted to write our own vows, you know? And so doing what any good husband-to-be would do, I Googled good wedding vows. Okay, it was great, you know, and then so I look it up, and there's some great things on there, like don't knock it till you try it, if we're being honest, okay? And so I looked up, there's some great wedding vows in there, and then there's some things that are straight up unbiblical, right? There was just completely nonsense. I have no idea where they got it from, so I'm like, let's toss this out, okay, this is good, let's change this, edit this, and then as I'm looking through all of the wedding vows and everything, there's this big opening that nobody touched on at all. And there was nothing in there about any of the people standing next to the groom or the bride. It was all about just the relationship of the groom and the bride, but nothing about anybody else. And so if you're thinking about like, why are all these other people up here if they don't matter after that day? So we're going to do a little bit of a history lesson to a degree, but really like the practicality of the groomsmen and the bridesmaids. So all of the groomsmen and the bridesmaids, they are there not just for their wedding day, but they are there to represent that long after you say I do for the rest of your life, I'm not just going to be there for your wedding day, but I'm going to be there for your marriage. Like when things get hard, I'm the person that you can call when things get hard, and I'm always going to be there for you. And so as I'm preparing this, like I just studied a ton of theology on friendship. I was like, man, why is nobody talking about this? I read a ton, and there's so much information about the value of friendships. Why is it not in the wedding vow? So I took it upon myself, and this was one of the vows that I wrote to Maddie. I said, I give you my word that I will surround myself with godly men who love and fear the Lord for the days when I fall short of being the man that God created me to be, and they will hold me accountable to the mission and calling that God has set before us. So a few weeks ago, I just had a mega rough week. It's not just like a rough day, but you know when rough days kind of string together? Anybody been there before? Yeah, it's like, and you just can't do anything right at all. You like try, and then that goes wrong, and the next thing goes wrong, and then it just kind of gets worse and worse and worse. And then you get to the end of the day, and it's like the things that normally put a smile on your face just don't. Like your favorite TV show, Fortnite, whatever it is, or even like your favorite home-cooked meal. It's just not cutting it. Like I'm driving in my truck, I have the windows down, listening to country music, and I'm just like, nothing, right? Nothing was really like giving me that feeling of happiness at all. And then, like I kept hearing like the voice in my head of the enemy just whispering lies over and over and over to me. And then the next day, Maddie and I are in Costco, which personally I think is like a better version of Disneyland. Here's why. You get free samples of food, okay? Has anybody seen, you don't have to wait in lines. And then lastly, has anybody seen like the pizza maker in the kitchen, how it like puts the red sauce on there? Do they have anything like that in Disney? No, okay? Costco over Disney any day, right? So we're standing there in Costco, and I'm just like, this is rough. I'm hearing the lies from the enemy. Like, and guys, I'm your pastor. I grew up in church. I love Jesus, and I know the biblical answer to the things that the enemy is whispering in my ear. I know that what he's saying, that nobody likes you. I'm like, no, I'm bought with the blood of Jesus. I'm made in the image of God. I'm going to spend eternity with him, that Jesus came down to earth, took my place on the cross so that I can go spend eternity with him, and that I exist here on earth to love God, love others, and make disciples. And then I even know like some of my giftings. I know some of the things that I'm good at, and none of that mattered. Like, so I think one of the longest distances in the world is from your head to your heart. What that means is like, I can know a lot of stuff and not feel it at all. Right? And that was one of the situations that I was in. I was like, I know that this is biblically true. I know that Jesus loves me, and I don't feel it at all. I know that I have friends who care about me, and I feel really lonely right now. That was just the situation that I was in for days and days. And you know the thing that really helped me get from that point to a healthier place? It wasn't like, you know what? I'm just gonna go watch a motivational video and go lift as much weight as I can. It wasn't like, you know what? I'm just gonna turn on Fortnite, numb out, and just have a great time. And it wasn't even like, you know what? I'm gonna get my journal and all 12 highlighters like my wife does, and like have all of these different things, and with a cute little coffee cup with a verse on it. It was like, none of those things are what took me from that place of feeling really empty and broken to a place of actual contentment with the Lord. You know what did it? It was when those guys who stood beside me on my wedding day texted me and called me just to check in. It was when Hunter over at Parker Square, he calls me and goes, dude, let's just go on a bike ride and talk. That was it. Nothing crazy. It's when Aiden goes, bro, we're gonna go to the gun range. Like, yeah, now we're talking, right? And then Matthew texts me like, dude, I'm gonna go take you to Trio and we're gonna go get a cup of coffee and just talk for a little bit. It was nothing too crazy, but it was these guys who stood beside me on my wedding day were also there for me when I was having one of the harder days that I can remember. And what I want to lay before you guys this morning is that one of, if not the single greatest determining factors that will play into your long-term spiritual maturity will be the depth of friendships that you build with godly men and godly women. So hear me, one word that I said in there that's really important is when I said build, like the godly friendships that you build. And the reason that I say that is like really awesome, great godly friendships don't just like land in your lap. They don't just show up at your doorstep. They're built through time and effort, and it takes a ton of work. All great things do, don't they? If you want to become good at anything, or maybe you're more talented than I am, and maybe you just show up and you're great at everything, but like if I want to be really good at something, I have to like work at it pretty hard, right? If you want to get fast, you run hard. If you want to get strong, you lift weights. If you want to get better at math, you spend time working on it. Well, not many people want to get better at math, but it's okay, you know? But we are going to say that the first step of walking into godly community is digging deep with disciples. First step of godly community is digging deep with disciples. This is what Proverbs 27:17 is all about when it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Hebrews 10:24, let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. Galatians 6:2, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. So these are the type of people that we want to spend the most amount of time with. Like these are the guys that I want to hang out with on a daily basis, that I just want to do life with. So I listened to a sermon by a pastor named Tim Keller. He is one of the greatest theologians and pastors that I've ever listened to. And he introduces this idea of godly community as something that he calls the King's Table. And the King's Table comes from the Old Testament. Have you guys heard of King David before? Yeah, so King David, awesome guy, he slays Goliath, he leads Israel, just a pretty legit dude. Now, King David had 3 primary guys who were like his inner circle of people that he spent the most amount of time with. And here are the 3 people. The first one is going to be Jashoboam. This comes from 1 Chronicles 11:11. And it says, Jashoboam was the chief of the officers. He raised his spear, his weapon, listen to this, against 300 men that he killed in one encounter. Now, I don't know about you. That's the type of guy that you don't want to be on the opposite side of, right? Jashoboam is like, I want this guy on my team. Have you guys ever played the game of like, it's kind of dark, but if you're walking down a dark alley, who's the one person that you want with you, protecting you? Jashoboam's my guy, right? I hope he killed 300 dudes with a spear. That's kind of a crazy... Yeah, crazy, right? So Jashoboam is kind of like a pit bull, He's just like ready to go fight, and David's like, we're going to go take that hill, and he's like, let's get it, baby. Come on, I'm there, And then the next guy is going to be Samuel. Samuel is like, think grandpa vibes, all right? Samuel is the older, the wiser guy that David is going to be held accountable to, and Samuel is going to be the one who can steer David. He's going to be able to, he's had more experience. He can correct David as he makes mistakes. You guys know how maybe you have a parent or an older sibling who's like, hey, I've been through this. Man, you might want to do this, might not want to do this, and they give you some really good advice. That's Samuel in this situation. And then the last one is Jonathan. So Jonathan is David's guy. Jonathan is hey, you've had a rough day, I'm going to bring you some Whataburger. Like Jonathan is dude, I know you've had a rough week at school. We're gonna figure it out, and we're gonna hop on and play in a game together. I'm just gonna hang out with you, right? There's nothing crazy about Jonathan. Right? We don't read this as, oh my gosh, he is the craziest accolades. He wasn't the one who killed the giant. Jonathan was just there for David. Jonathan was there when David kills the giant, but Jonathan was also there when David lost his child. Jonathan was just there for David anytime he needed. This is one of the best descriptors of Jonathan in 1 Samuel 18:3. It says, Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as he loved his own soul. He said, I'm not going anywhere. No matter how hard life gets, no matter how successful you become, no matter how much you fail, I'm just going to be with you no matter what. Period. End of story. These are the 3 guys that David primarily hung out with. And this is the vision for us belonging in community. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter how much stuff they have, how popular they are. Well, it doesn't matter how funny or successful they are. What matters is that they love and live for Jesus. And then secondly, that they can push you to be a better follower of Jesus. Like these are the friendships where over the next years that you can talk about, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Where are you going to go to high school? Where are you going to go to college? Should you go out with this guy or girl? Well, all these questions, what are your dreams, your fears, your struggles? What's bringing you joy and what's like robbing you of life? These are the type of guys that when you have the rough week, these are the type of girls that when you have the rough week, that you're able to call. That's the type of friendships that we're after. Now, one of the biggest challenges that I believe that you and I face when it comes to like the building of really deep godly friendships, we're going to call it the 1%. Okay, so the 1%, I'm referring to the 1% of your life that you don't want anybody to know about. That your parents don't know about, that nobody else, or that nobody knows about. The 1%. The reason that I bring this up is because the enemy has consistently tried to tell us that if anybody knew about that one thing that you did or that one thing that you looked at or the one thought that you had, they wouldn't like you anymore. That's a lie that the enemy consistently tries to tell us. And it's really easy to share with people like the first 90% of our lives. What are my hobbies? What am I into? What do I kind of not like? What music? Like all the surface level stuff that's 90%, that's easy. And then it's kind of easy to go an extra 5 to 8% with people, right? Of like, I grew up and it was kind of hard. Maybe my parents got divorced. That's some vulnerable information. But then there's that one thing that you've heard a voice in your head say, if they knew about this, what would they think of me? That is the 1% that we're talking about. And that 1% is the limiting factor of building godly community and being vulnerable. So the limiting factor of building godly community is your vulnerability. Tim Keller says it like this. He says, to be loved but not known, it's comforting but superficial. Meaning, like, if I can be loved, but if people don't really know all of me, then it's like it doesn't really matter that much. Then he says, but to be known and not loved is our greatest fear. But to be fully known and truly loved, well, it's a lot like being loved by God. It is what we need more than anything. So what Tim Keller is all about is he's saying it's not enough for people to know 90% of you. It's not enough for people to know 95, 97, 98, or even 99% of you. That one thing that you've hidden from people, that one thing where you've heard the voice say, if they knew this, would we still be friends? That's the thing that's most important to share. When it comes to God's vision for belonging, it starts with us digging deep with disciples. So as we're building like these deep godly friendships, we could talk about this for a long time. And this is something that we're going to work on for the rest of our lives, by the way. Like leaders in here are still working on building these godly friendships. So as we're building these godly friendships, we don't just want to like only hang out with those godly people, right? It's awesome to be in here for a Sunday small group where a lot of people love Jesus, but I don't know about you guys, I spend a lot of my week outside of just my small group, right? I spend a lot of time around people who don't know Jesus. I spend a lot of time around people who live a very different way than me. So what should I do when I go from my small group of people who like and love Jesus to all the people who don't walk with him at all? So from the place of us primarily seeking to dig deep with disciples, we should follow Jesus' example of socializing with the unsaved for the purpose of evangelism. This is in Matthew 9, 10 through 13. Let me read it for us, and it's up on the screen. As Jesus reclined at the table in the house, behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and were reclining with Jesus and his disciples. And when the Pharisees saw, they said to his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? But when he heard it, he said, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice, for I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. So Jesus makes it really clear in his ministry that he is abundantly intentional about spending time with people who don't have a relationship with God. But one really important thing to note about this passage is, first of all, who was Jesus with? Quiz time. So the tax collectors, the Pharisees, who was the other group of people that he was with? Yeah. His disciples. You nailed it. So there's Jesus and his disciples. What does this mean? Like his disciples are his boys, right? His disciples are his guys, the equivalent of like the dudes who were standing beside me. Those are his guys. Why are his disciples there? What do y'all think?
So that way they can teach the extra people.
Okay.
That way it's not just one people, but two.
Could be. Yeah. I also think that we don't really, you got something? What do you think? They could learn from him. Did you have your hand up too? Okay. Yeah, so we see, so that they could learn from him. Also, it's very rare that we see Jesus doing ministry by himself. He did it with his guys. Yes, he was teaching them. Yes, it was so they could help. But it was like he was doing ministry with his brothers. He was doing ministry with the guys that he did life with. So he's built this awesome relationship with his friends, with his disciples. And then he goes and he starts loving on people who don't know Jesus. And this is the model that we want to follow, is build really solid friendships. And like that should start here at church. Like build really solid friendship with the guys, with the girls in your small group. And then as soon as we leave from here, we should be thinking about, okay, who doesn't know Jesus that I can get my friends and we can go start sharing the love of Jesus with them. So for me, what this looks like, on Tuesday nights, I ride bikes with this group of guys. They're all like 20 years older than me. It's really, really funny. And there's one other guy in that group of about 30 people who's a Christian. His name is Brandon Frazier. He goes to a big church and everything, so I'm friends with him. And so we were riding bikes together. Him and I, every week before we go ride bikes, we do a little prayer and we're like, Lord, who might you be asking us to share the gospel with? And so we kind of have two primary goals on these bike rides. First of all, we want to win. And then secondly, as we're riding, we want to share the love of Jesus Christ with everybody that we're riding with. And most of the time that ends up in somewhat of a gospel conversation. Some of those people that we ride with have come to church with us. But notice like Brandon and I, we're friends, we're praying together, and then we're going to go do ministry together, inviting people to join. And then one really important thing, notice that when Jesus is having dinner with people, notice that Jesus isn't out, he's not out partying, he's not out making really dumb decisions. He's actually inviting people into dinner so that he can share the love of Jesus Christ with them. He's inviting them into a relationship, not joining them in sinning. Right? So he's inviting them into a different place rather than joining them in the sins that they might be committing. So what we're going to do, we're going to wrap up and go ahead and go to small groups. But when we think about belonging, like when it comes to God's vision for belonging, we should think about it as, first, I need to dig really deep with disciples. How do I find a group of guys? How do I find a group of girls, go really deep with, become great friends with? And then after that, how do I go share the love of Jesus Christ with people who don't know him? I'm going to pray and then we'll go to small groups. Jesus, we love you. And Lord, I pray that as we talk about this passage, as we talk about the whole topic of belonging, Lord, I pray that we can dig deep with people who love you and fear you and want to become more like you. And Lord, I also pray that it doesn't just stop here. I pray that we can walk out of these walls and go share the love of you with others. We love you. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, y'all are good to go to groups.